Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio. So today, we are looking at another exciting new card from the upcoming Ultra Prism expansion. We've looked at Empoleon, we've looked at Torterra. It is only fair that we now turn our attention to Infernape. So starting off, Infernape has 130 HP, which I'm going to be honest, little bit low for a Stage 2 Pokemon in the Pokemon trading card game at the moment. The way we are at the moment is a little bit low, a little bit rubbish. Empoleon, 160 HP, that seems quite fair. Torterra, monstrous 180 HP, but that's alright. You know, some of them are bulkier than others. 130 HP, it's just low to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, Mamoswine's got 180. Yeah, anytime I can get a Mamoswine reference into the video, I'm doing it. Weakness to water here is a bit of a pain. I personally think Empoleon's going to be really good. Time Ultra, Prism drops, Glaceon GX could also be kind of good. So actually a weakness to them could be a bit of a pain. And then of course let's not forget our old friend Greninja, who won't go away as much as some of us wish he probably would. Retreat cost of 1 is nice and low, and being a fire type means you're hitting weakness against Golisopod and Decidueye, both of which are very good at the moment. And you do get Baby Volcanion, hey Nick, which could be good for accelerating energy, which is quite nice. Although you don't get to do extra damage with Volcanion EX, because you're not a basic Pokemon. Now the ability here is what we really like. If this Pokemon is in play, place 6 damage counters on burned Pokemon between turns. Yeah. How cool is that? Pokemon that are burned take 6 damage counters between turns. Your opponent's Pokemon, not your own. Generally, the rule with burn is this. Pokemon who are burned take 2 damage counters between turns, and then they flip a coin. If heads, they're no longer burned. If tails, they remain burned, but they take 2 damage counters before you flip. What the great thing about the new burn rule is, under the old burn rule, they never just got away from burn until they retreated, but it was flip a coin. If tails, you take 2 damage counters. So if you always flipped heads on burn previously, you would take no damage ever. Here, you will always take minimum 6 damage counters from burn, which is really, really nice. Now, I have seen different translations of this, so I went to my good friend David Hockman, who did confirm for me that it is when you're on the bench or active this works. You do not have to be active, which makes a big difference. Ideally, what you really want to do with something like Infernape here, leave it on the bench while you're burning Pokemon through other means, and then laughing while they take 6 damage counters from burn. Which I suppose leads to the fairly obvious opening question here. How do you go about getting burn on your opponent's Pokemon? Well, I've got a few options for you. The Salazzle from Guardians Rising could be quite fun here. When you evolve up, the defending Pokemon, your opponent's active Pokemon, is burned and poisoned. Yeah. That could be pretty good, because now they're going to take an instant 6 damage counters from the burn, plus a damage counter from poison, and let's not forget you could always play something like as a Viper here from Burning Shadows, which would increase the poison damage by 1 every turn, or between turns, although bench space does become an issue if you're mucking about with Viper here. 7 damage counters. Straight away, and that's without attacking. Don't forget that you can always just use Devolution Spray and then potentially re-evolve every turn. If you've got 2 or 3 Salandit on the field, then you just evolve one, and then you next turn devolve it and evolve a different one. And then the next turn you devolve it and evolve a different one, etc, etc, hoping to burn them and poison them every turn. Not unlike we've seen from the Raichu Heatmore deck that some people have been playing, that did see a little bit of success at the London International Championships. So, yeah, could work here. Not 100% convinced, but it could be quite a lot of fun. And if you really want to go overboard with this, you can always use Puzzle of Time. 4 Devolution Spray, 4 Puzzle of Time, 2 Salazzle line. That's 10 abilities in a game. 10 times you're burning and poisoning them. That's pretty nice. Another one, how about Alolan Muck's GX attack? Alolan Muck GX, I should hasten to add. 0 energy, drag a Pokemon in the active, and they are burned and paralyzed and poisoned. So the same as Salazzle here, except you also add in paralysis, so for 1 turn, they can't even attack or retreat. Paralysis, you can't attack or retreat, it lasts for exactly 1 turn. So they would need to use something like a Guzma or an Ace Roller here to get out of the active. Otherwise, you essentially get a free hit on them the following turn. But if they're taking 6 damage counters from burn, and they're taking 1 damage counter from poison, that's pretty good. But of course they're then paralyzed. So hopefully they don't hit a heads on burn. So then after their turn, they take another 6 damage counters from burn and another 1 from poison. If you've got no Survivor out, but you've got an Infernape on the bench, and they flip Tails on burn, they will come back to you with 14 damage counters on. And then you get to attack, and against most things, Tapu Lele, you're going to need to do 3 damage counters, 30 damage to get a KO. That's not very much, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what I like about this. It opens up these weird plays where you're using less usual Pokemon, where you're using attacks we're not used to using. And bearing in mind all the stuff I'm saying here, I'm not talking about your main attacker. You can put a main attacker in here as well. Now, there are a couple from the new set which we're not going to go into a huge amount of detail about now. It's not their video, but they do warrant having a very quick mention. There is a Magmortar coming that's got an ability that says if you attack Magmortar, if you damage Magmortar, you get burned. So attack with Magmortar, and then if they attack you, they get burned, and then they take 6 damage counters straight away. And remember that if they flip Tails on burn, they then take 6 damage counters after their turn, and so on and so forth. And I've got to give a quick shout out to the new Salazzle. I know it's Salazzle, but I call it Salazizzle because I'm still upset that I had a male Salandit and I got to like level 50 and it never evolved. 1 fire energy, burn, poison, and confusion. Doesn't do any damage, but if you combine it with Infernape and maybe Survivor here, you don't need to. They're confused, which means if they try and attack, they flip a coin. If Tails, they take 30 damage and the attack fails, and they're taking 6 damage counters between turns with burn, and at least 10 damage between turns with poison, and they're confused. I quite like the idea of playing Salazzle with Infernape. That could be fun, ladies and gentlemen. That could be fun. Now, Infernape does have an attack here as well, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's not particularly great. Fire and a colourless energy, 50 damage plus burn. I mean, it's got to be burn. Good news is this actually goes up to 110 because of your ability. Bad news is 50 damage just isn't very much. Now, the good news is if they don't get out of the active and they flip a Tails, this goes up to 170, which is enough to KO something like a Tapu Lele. And now we're talking. But even against something like a Golisopod, you do 100... and then they take 6 damage counters and they're up to 160. Although with a choice band, you're talking 80, which doubles to 160, which means they then will be KO'd by burn, but then a Decidueye won't. And if you're attacking with a stage 2 fire Pokemon and not KOing a Decidueye, it's probably not the one with which you want to be attacking. What I will say is, you can use counter energy here, which, as long as you're behind on prizes, will allow you to pay the attack cost of this with just a single energy attachment, which is kind of nice. But overall, I just don't think you're doing enough damage. It's not really hitting the numbers. I'm not saying it's a bad attack, and I'm not saying it's a useless attack. It absolutely will see play, and it is pretty good, but it's just not quite good enough. But the ability here, and I've said this before, there's so many stage 2s that have got good abilities that never saw any play, but This is a really interesting ability, and I'm sure there are some players out there that could do really interesting things with it. I am going to give this between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. The worst thing about Infernape is that the attack does not hit many of the key numbers. Then again, maybe in the future, this could be pretty good. Maybe with the new Salazzle, maybe with the new Magmortar, maybe with the Guardians Rising Salazzle. Either way, there are things to test. It's an interesting card, and that makes me happy. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about this new Infernape card. Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and so on, you can do so by going to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.